The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, hi everybody, and welcome to our what is it now? Goodness, I'm trying to figure out how many times we've been meeting here, and let's see where we are with this. This is our 81st meeting in the Dissipation of Glamour, and if all works well, we will continue. I want to apologize to some of you this morning. I was going to do a Science of Triangles continuation, and it was a very interesting chart. We're going to get to it as soon as we can. As a matter of fact, usually we do these things in the, let's see, I guess we do them in the morning, the Science of Triangles. But next week, when we're on the normal morning schedule, I hope, if I'm not traveling, and I'll be letting you all know, to do the Science of Triangles in the evening at the 5 p.m. time, hopefully on Friday. It was going to be that chart that, you know, starts with the three super constellations, a great triangle of Great Bear, Sirius or Little Bear, and then Pleiades, and goes all the way down by 6 steps into the various chakras of the human being. But I was just not able to do it. Various factors came up. Some of them were technical factors, was not in a position to broadcast as usual. So hopefully by the 10th, we'll be able to take care of this. Also, for those of you who may not know, just letting you know that we have a new platform now for broadcasting, and it is the YouTube platform with a very broad band for music. So we should not be getting that stalling effect that some have reported here and there. And recently, we've had a week-long Blue Rose Mystery Week here at the Temple of Silence, and most of those programs are actually to be found in a Blue Rose sort of playlist on YouTube right now. Moria Federation, Esoteric Education. You can find that, and there are discussions of the first 3 initiations. There's some deep meditations and some other programs. Even if you're not a Blue Rose sister or a Shiva brother, as it were, you're welcome to go there and examine that material. Maybe it will be useful to you. I think there's probably 20 programs there, maybe a little more. So see if you can find them if you're interested, and you can download them, I think, and you can also just play them as far as that goes. Also, I've been now continuing with the Treatise on White Magic programs, and we're up to program 16, and program 17 has just been completed and will be put up again on YouTube. And we have done now the first 9 rules for magic. And there's a lot of elaboration, of course, because that's just the way the Tibetan is. He extends into other subjects. You know, he can be talking to you about creating a thought form which is bathing in the astral waters, and the next thing you know, he's talking about the one about whom naught may be said, and the analogy of bathing great entities as thought forms in the waters of space. This is, I've just been dealing with that. So it's a profound book, a wonderful book, and I'm doing my best to help us study through on that. So you can find that also on the most recent 16 programs you can find on YouTube, and the earlier programs, of which there are 55, all the rules for the mental plane, plus that very extensive introduction to a treatise on white magic. All of that can be found on Makara for the moment, and before long, I hope we're able to bring it up onto YouTube as well. All right, I think that's what I wanted to announce, and I just want to welcome you here. I always try to welcome everybody in the beginning. I can't do it after that point. So if you join a little bit later, I'll see you there, but can't acknowledge in the same way. So welcome to Alexandra, Anne-Marie, Annette, Antoinette, Barbara, Bianca, Catherine, Deborah, Frederick, Gregory, Jan, Joan, Joanne, John, Yopie, Karen, Keith, Lisa, Lori, Margot, Martha, Michael, Suzanne, Tiu, Tuija. Of course, Tuija is one of the sponsors of this, along with Olivia, Hansen, and Yvonne. And we're backed up today by Joe Waltz and B.L. Allison, who are helping out in case I get into trouble, and occasionally I do. All right, so now, before we get into our meditation, and I must say, well, what do I know? But when I'm here in Finland, and I read at least 3 different news feeds, going all the way from the far left to the far right, with something sort of central, and occasionally some others as well. We're going through a great political challenge globally, I would say. There are 3 forms of government: monarchy, there is democracy, and there is communism. Communism is related to the 3rd ray and evolved out of humanity. Democracy is related to hierarchy in the 7th ray, and monarchy, of course, along with fascism and certain types of totalitarian presentations, are on all those are on the 1st ray. And there seems to be some kind of trend or tendency for the dictatorial types to appear when people are uncertain of their future. They don't necessarily look to themselves or to their group. They sometimes look to a so-called strong man to get them through the problem. And unfortunately, there are a number of these strong men who are not really strong at all, psychologically. Matter of fact, they can be quite weak, but they seem to offer a demagogic solution rather than a thoughtful, democratic solution. Churchill had a marvelous statement about democracy, how it was the most, it was the most inept, the most infuriating, the most ungainly, the most impossible form of government, and yet the best. I'd like to be able to find that quote on democracy, because it's really humorous in how he presents it. There are all these frustrations when we try to work things out according to the will of the people. Even, in a republic, the will of the people prevails. And people can get frustrated with it and look for simplistic solutions, such as dictatorship. It's very simple. There's one Führer, there's one leader, there's one person who thinks narcissistically that they can control everything for the best advantage of themselves and all. But that type of simplicity is the abrogation of the rights of the people who have won their voice and their vote through blood, toil, sweat, and tears over the centuries. The age of reason came in, and the Enlightenment and the rebellion against church authority, and then eventually the rebellion against dogmatic hereditary monarchy and all of that. And we have fought our way globally into a measure of hierarchical democracy. This is now being challenged because of the psychological ineptness of many people who really don't know themselves, nor can they see through the leaders who present themselves as the solution to all problems. So we esoteric workers, we have a big job on the inside to promote the way of hierarchy and the type of government that hierarchy would like to see expressed. Of course, every nation has its own soul ray and personality ray, and there will be important differences. There will be articulations within the intended synthesis, but still everyone has a voice, that voice is important, and we don't have a situation in which there are those who are not to be considered because they are simply weak. No, we don't have that. We have to see and respect everyone, nor can we have certain methods of government dominating everything. It may be that the United States and the United Kingdom and also Russia will be very influential in guiding humanity through the prospects of entering the new age, and the fate of humanity does rest in their hands, but it's not a dictatorship. It's them expressing their soul ray in a cooperative manner, with Russia's having a 7th ray Aquarius soul and a 6th ray Leo personality, the United Kingdom having a 2nd ray Gemini soul and a 1st ray Taurus personality, and the United States having a 2nd ray Aquarius soul and a 6th ray Gemini personality. If you think about those rays, you can see the lines of cooperation and how useful they are in bringing humanity into the Aquarian age, which is also the age of the Christ with its 2nd ray. And the 7th ray is the new ray, and Aquarius is the new sign. And Gemini is related. Equality, liberty, equality, and fraternity, the 3 air signs. All right, that's just a bit of a ramble. It's one of the reasons why we do this work, to try to set humanity on the proper path. Who are we? We're just, little students of this material, and but we do have some internal esoteric clout, just a little bit, and we've been given the methods of working, so we apply ourselves to that, and we use the occult methods under right guidance, and hopefully, as we persist, we will make our subtle and often hidden contribution to the correct emergence of humanity into the Aquarian age. So as we go, take a few notes, and we'll see how far we get. Like I said, we'll keep this glamour, dissipation of glamour work going every week, and next week, because we missed what was this morning's presentation, we'll do our best to make an evening presentation. In other words, we'll have 2 on, but BL and Joe, you'll have to let me know whether I'm colliding with anything, and if I am, I'll try to set it at a different time. But if I'm not colliding, then on the 10th, Friday the 10th at 5 o'clock p.m. GMT, we'll continue with the science of triangles, which has a lot of esoteric astrology in it, and you'll be learning, if you don't know it already, quite a bit more about esoteric astrology and the great energies in which we live and move and have our being. Okay, onward. At this point, I desire to do 2 things, says the Tibetan. I seek to outline a little more carefully this discussion or short treatise on glamour, so that our ideas may be clearly formulated, and you will have a textbook for future reference, which will serve to guide your group and analogous groups in the way of right activity. I think it's obvious that we can call ourselves an analogous group. Okay, we're 70 years later, but all around the world and in various places, there have been those who have been called to do this kind of work, and so the book is written for our guidance as well. So he wants to go a little bit more into detail. Secondly, let's see here. So that's firstly, at this point, okay, secondly, I wish to recapitulate somewhat those things which I have already stated, so as to enrich your understanding of the various phases of world glamour. The old saying, when you're dealing with trying to help people understand something, the Toastmasters and various speech givers, they always refer to this: tell them what you're going to say it, and tell them what you said. Those 3 things. So you you anticipate, then you do it, and then you review what you've done. So in any case, DK is somehow very good at that method. I wish to recapitulate somewhat those things that I've already stated so as to enrich your understanding of the various phases of the world glamour. Well, you know, it's still with us, isn't it? As long as we're going to have 80%, let's say some 80% of humanity at the stage which is still largely the Atlantean consciousness, or maybe a Kama monastic consciousness where desire and mind are sort of hopelessly blended and confused, you're going to have glamour. And to abstract oneself from that, that is the task of the true esoteric thinker. This world glamour, the analytical mind, has to differentiate into distinctive phases, calling them illusion, glamour, and Maya, and that synthetic thought form found on the path of discipleship, which is called the dweller on the threshold. So here he's using glamour in a generic sense. He's using it generically, and you can use any of those terms, illusion, Maya, whatever. You can use them in the larger and general sense. And in this book, of course, he has not only written on glamour per se, but he has written on illusion and Maya, and said a few very interesting things about the dweller on the threshold, which I think doesn't really become a huge problem for us until the third degree, and maybe even humanity's dweller at the fourth, and for some strange reason is only finally dissipated at the fifth degree, and that's astonishing, but we'll try to read that and understand that. As you will see from this, my brothers, we have set ourselves a large theme, which must be very carefully handled. My task is a difficult one because I write for those who are still held by various aspects of glamour, and usually by the secondary glamour and Maya. So primary and secondary, anyway, the point is we have our glamours, we have our distortions, we have our exaggerations, our minimizations, we have our overemphasis and our underemphasis, we have all that, and yet he's trying to clarify our minds on these matters. And, you know, hopefully he will succeed in doing so as we apply ourselves. Now, with respect to ourselves, and certainly with respect to most human beings on this planet, though not all, illusion does not yet fully play its part, and the dweller is seldom adequately realized. Well, you know, you have to wait until we have a really powerful integrated personality before that dweller shows itself. Up to that time, it's just going to be, as I joke, I say, well, you see a tooth here and a fang there, you know. You see a claw, you see various little parts of that horrible dweller beast, but you don't see the whole thing. And we will see it as we ascend in our soul-infused personality integration. So illusion doesn't yet really play its part because we aren't mentally focused enough, and certainly we are not yet mentally polarized. Now think about what mental focus is. One thing, and it's good, and we're getting that, but we throw around the word mental polarization. Well, what in the world does that mean? And when he discusses the sixth initiation, he tells us that it's not until midway between the second and third initiation that we achieve true mental polarization. And of course, what happens at the midway point, you go off in the desert after your purification and you face the devil. And the devil tempts you in three ways. And you have to overcome the world, the flesh, and the devil. The devil is mental, the world is more physical, and the flesh is more astral. So how many of us have really done that? Well, okay. Who can say? It's up to each of us to examine our life carefully and what the Christ through Jesus went through at that time, and to say, look, are we mentally polarized really, and have we overcome the world, the flesh, and the devil at least sufficiently to begin working on the world, the flesh, and the devil as far as humanity is concerned. Okay, so I would here remind you of a stupendous occult fact, and will ask you to endeavor to understand that whereof I speak. The dweller on the threshold does not emerge out of the fog of illusion. Notice it's almost sequential, isn't it? First you get, some kind of Maya, then glamour, then illusion. And out of all of that, once illusion has established itself, the dweller emerges. Okay, so I think we talked glibly about the dweller, but we don't really know what it is, and we're not really having to deal with it. I would remind you of the stupendous occult fact that it does not emerge out of the fog of illusion until the disciple is nearing the gates of life. Now, that's not going to be a casual term. He's not just saying the gates of wisdom, is he? And what is life? The monad is life. Okay, so let's call it the third initiation, where we do contact in a more conscious way the monad, the aspect of life within us, the will and life at its core. So as we're approaching that third degree, he tells us on page 71 of Esoteric Astrology that a fearful conflict arises in the life of the becoming third degree initiate. And that conflict is between Mars and the moon, and I would say a veiling Vulcan, the moon veiling Vulcan. So that conflict, I think, is all part of the emergence of the dweller in an individual sense. Whether we entirely defeat that dweller, that's another matter. Maybe we don't until the fourth initiation. Okay. The gates of life. So think about that. There's, gates of knowledge, gates of love, gates of wisdom, gates of life. Only when he can catch dim glimpses of the portal of initiation, and I want to say here of real initiation, and an occasional flash of light from the angel of the presence who stands beside the door. Now notice this presence is the monad. Okay, so the angel, what have I done? This keeps on jumping. Nearing the gates of life. Okay, so this is the monad, and let's just say this angel introduces us to the presence at the right time, and consciously so at the third degree. Okay, so the angel of the presence, who, capital who, stands waiting beside that door. Can he come to grips with the principle of duality which is embodied for him in the dweller and the angel? Up to that time, it is simply partial. We may get the idea, even from the time you enter the petals of love, which is really before you are an aspirant even, and there is the sense of the higher and the lower pairs of opposites. It's just partial. Really getting a handle on our duality comes later in the game. And remember that on this planet, if we graduate, and I dearly trust we all will graduate, we are called adjudicators between the pairs of opposites, higher and lower, I add. He says, okay, so only when we near the gates of life, see the real portal of initiation, which doesn't begin until the third degree, get that flash of realization and light from the angel of the presence acting in its role of introducing us to the monad, as it were, which is our real self anyway, who stands waiting beside the door, and maybe that's quite literal in a certain sense, because the angel of the presence, or solar angel, has a place, a specific place in various initiation ceremonies. Now, if you read Initiation Human and Solar carefully, you'll see the angel is here, the angel is there, it's acting this way, it's acting that way. And the personnel keeps changing position. And the angel, as a real being, keeps changing position. And then he asked that question, which is the tough one. Do you comprehend that whereof I speak? Well, okay. And yet my words embody for you symbolically a future condition and event. He's training, well, look, he's hardly training anyone for the third degree. There are a few. I think Alice Bailey was a third degree going on to the fourth, and Assaggio was a third degree going on to the fourth. And there was another man, William Miller, was a DHB, who reminded the Tibetan of himself when he was preparing for the third initiation. But otherwise, the third initiation is not mentioned as immediately ahead for any of the disciples, whereas the second initiation is actually mentioned. So my words embody for you symbolically a future condition and event. That day will surely come, however, when you will stand in full awareness between these symbols of the pairs of opposites, with the angel on the right and the dweller on the left. Okay, and is that at the door of initiation? And this is very, all this is very much about the threefold channel. You'll recognize here somehow the Ida, the Pingala, and the Sushumna. The right, the left. The Ida is the left, Pingala is the right, Sushumna is straight through. Really, by the time we finish with the initiation, well, it's not initiation, but winning in the desert, as it were, we really are on our way through that portal of the third initiation. But it seems that still there are tests, and maybe it's possible even to go astray after that. He doesn't discuss that very much, but maybe he hints at it here. May strength then be given to you to drive straight forward between these two opponents who have, now, how interesting, and this is like saying Venus and Mars are opponents, because one, of course, is the angel, and the other is the dweller. Drive straight through. It's like the will is like pure being. It's not going toward either of the pairs of opposites, but doing the thing that includes both of them as one thing, because indeed they are one thing, finally. Okay, these two opponents who have for long ages waged warfare in the field of your life as they grow up, the presence of the angel, the presence of the dweller, no one completely formed. The angel's influence is not complete. The dweller is not completely formed, but they have been, in their formation, opponents who have for long waged warfare in the field of your life. Think about that. This is good to do, this is bad to do, this is high, this is low, this is the right choice, this is the wrong choice. All those factors which we have been considering, okay? Waged warfare in the field of your life, and so may you enter into that presence where the two are seen as one, and naught is known but life and deity. Well, this is a merging into the one, and it comes with monadic consciousness. At least it grows within monadic consciousness. So driving straight through, it's a bit like the Sushumna, driving straight through the Ida and the Pingala, and it's the way of the will leading to the appreciation of being, and all things are included in that being. So this awaits us, let's see what we have here. In summarizing, let's see here. This is a chart that we may want to be looking at here. And let's see how far we go. No, there's more. There's more, and maybe we're not going to get to that chart. Is that possible? Goodness, where am I? Hold on. Oh yeah, hidden words, hidden 37. So what page are we on? Okay, well, we're not there yet. Okay, we're not there yet, and we can't rush it. We have to think clearly. If we're doing what we should be doing, we'll probably be reading this book and working in this way even up till 2025. So, in summarizing some of the information I have given to you concerning the four aspects of glamour, I would offer the following tabulation. This is on page 40. I would offer the following tabulation accordingly. Okay, here we go. Let's see if this makes any sense to us, right? Here we go. Note for your careful consideration. So obviously DK drives home certain facts. Now look, if we cognize the facts, if we take them in, if we examine them, if we understand them, if we memorize them, we'll be able to compare them with other facts, and a divine pattern of relationship will emerge for us when we really use that fifth ray. Now remember, we're working with the technique of light a lot here, aren't we? And we're projecting our beam from the mental plane, and we're using the Ajna Center to do it. And the Ajna Center is ruled for pretty well everybody at a certain point by Venus and the fifth ray. The fifth ray is necessary in the technique of light, and the fifth ray, Lord, take this in, is the most luminous of all the ray lords. Fifth ray Lord, the most luminous, and the second ray Soul, the most luminous of soul types. Okay, so let's see if we can, get this. A dawning sense of Maya arose in Lemurian days, but there was no real glamour and illusion. Well, we're talking about the early petals. We're not talking about petals of emotion. We're not talking about emotions in any way except as they are associated with the instincts. We have very little mentality. It's very, a cat or a dog has mentality. We had a kind of mentality that helps us solve physical plane problems, but nothing that could be called the real thinker has appeared, and our desires are not for things other than that which will satisfy the instinctual nature. Okay, so even though he tells us to have full-fledged Maya, we read this earlier, we have to have illusion and glamour in the sense of the kind of being swept up by the chaos of impulsion, you might say. We have the Maya in the early days. We are impelled towards many things, and we don't know why. We just following our instincts, and we act, and we don't know why. That's why he calls Maya an unthinking factor, and later an unthinking emotional mess, he calls it. Okay, glamour arose in early Atlantean times. Early Atlantean times, he sometimes talks about it. He gives a figure 12 million years ago. Illusion arose among advanced human beings in later Atlantean days and will be the controlling factor in our Aryan race. Well, we're not done with our Aryan race, are we? We still have the 6th and 7th sub-races of our Aryan race, and we don't know to what extent the 5th sub-race has entirely played itself out. So let's just say that from the time initiation began to be taken in Atlantean days, probably, in the 5th sub-race of the 4th root race. I think, Philip Lindsay will have specific ideas about that. He's the most focused researcher on these matters. But anyways, 4 sub 4, 4 sub 5, somewhere in there, we get the Mercury influence, whose rays are 5, 4, 3, really, if we look at Mercury. So illusion let Maya flourish and deception rule is very much connected with Mercury, and Mercury is, in early days, the lying, deceiving planet. So, you know, the early Gemini has to watch out for that kind of thing. And other signs ruled by, I mean, even Scorpio is ruled by Mercury in a high way. So illusion arose among advanced human beings, advanced for that period, in later Atlantean days. And but this is, I suppose, before the Aryan race is coming in, or maybe just as it's coming in, because maybe the seed of the Aryan root race is planted when we reach the number 5 in terms of the 5th sub-race of the Atlantean root race. So, and it will be, and is becoming, in the future, the controlling factor of our Aryan race, which suggests that the sub-5 quality of our Aryan race is not yet spent, okay? Because we're nowhere near having a majority of integrated personalities that are subject to illusion. We're not there yet. We still have quite a bit of Atlantean hangover, you might say. So the coming of real thought among the people and all of the advantages and disadvantages of that is still lying in the future. The dweller on the threshold arrives at full potency at the end of this race, the Aryan. How long will that be? Well, and in the lives of all initiates prior to taking the 3rd initiation. So the battle with illusion and the use of the nascent intuition to dispel illusion is operative before the 3rd initiation. Let's see. Well, we're not yet at the end of the race, and nor is illusion the prevailing problem in humanity. It is still glamour. When you look at the Axis powers related to the Second World War, he considered Germany the worst. It represented glamour, Japan, Maya, and Italy, illusion, but glamour was the worst. So we will have the integrated personality here. You've got to have really an integrated personality before you have the dweller on the threshold. Leo is the sign of the integrated personality, and it's the most human of all signs. And it tends to have a strong 5th ray and a 1st ray. The distinct, separative, and 1st ray dominant personality subject to the illusions of the concrete mind is coming into focus with its special dangers in the years ahead. The subhuman kingdoms in nature are free from glamour and illusion, but are immersed in world Maya. They are, well, especially I suppose we're thinking about the animal kingdom, excuse me, which is certainly subject unknowingly to its instinctual nature. As far as how Maya shows up in plant life or mineral life, I don't know how we would see that, but maybe he means that as well. Now, here are a couple of important statements about where we stand right now. The Buddha and his 900 arhats, just think of that. The Buddha is training people for the 4th degree, or even people who have taken the 4th degree. So his level of teaching is very high, but of course it branched out to everybody. The Buddha and his 900 arhats struck the first blow at the world glamour when he promulgated his 4 noble truths, which is basically don't get involved in the world of phenomena because it's nothing but pain and delusion, misleading us and captivating us. The Christ struck the second blow with his teaching of the nature of individual responsibility and brotherhood, maybe more of the love, wisdom, energy entering there, though the Buddha had plenty of it, especially on the wisdom line. And this puts responsibility where it belongs. The next blow will be struck by the new group of world servers acting under the direction of the Christ and his disciples, symbolically described as Christ and his 9,000 initiates. So let's just say the new group of world servers are here included as largely initiates of the second degree. So, you know, this is not only in this life, and people like ourselves will be involved in this in a coming way. 900 and 9,000 now, these are numbers which are numbers of summation. It means the end of a third ray age, an end of a third ray orientation. The number 9 is the number which expresses the third ray, whether it's 9, 90, 900, 9,000, 90,000, 900,000, whatever. It expresses the end of the cycle and the antechamber to entering the clear, intuitive perception of the second ray. The Buddha has a different monadic ray than the Christ, at least as I see it. One of his monadic rays is the third ray, and the Christ has the second ray monad, quite obviously, and probably on both levels where you can think of monadic rays has the second ray for both, and maybe the Buddha has it for one of the levels, but they work together, and they prepared humanity step by step. And even though the Buddha worked with maybe more advanced individuals than the little ashram gathered around the Christ, he still said things that were important to think about as training for accepted discipleship. And somehow the Christ was teaching even more about the initiatory process. He had largely around him initiates of probation, probationary initiates of the first and maybe second degree. Maybe St. Paul, substituting him for Judas, went on to the third degree and maybe the fourth, but largely we had initiates of the first degree around the Christ, maybe a little bit the second. And so he would have to teach about initiation because it applied to all of us. And by the time you're almost an arhat, you know more about it. Okay, now a little more. The 4 keynotes to the solution of the problem of glamour are intuition, illumination, inspiration, and the angel of the presence. Well, okay, intuition, you know, it's a Sagittarian thing, but it also can show up anywhere. Illumination is Scorpionic, inspiration is Sagittarian, and the angel of the presence is Capricornian. In the sequence about meditation, he gives us this. Now, Joe has shot something over to me here, which maybe we can end with or take a quick look. The aspects of glamour, and we'll look at our table here. And this is it here. And it maybe it's something, I don't know, Joe, that we could put in a place where people could pick it up. But here are the problems and where you find these things. I don't know why the Maya is not looked at in terms of ether, because the veil of impulsion on the etheric plane is related to Maya. But anyway, illusion is mental, glamour is astral, Maya is both etheric and physical, and the dweller on the threshold really takes shape as the total negative, though highly advanced personality. That's the problem. What's the opposite of illusion? Intuition or spiritual perception. Remember that you have to have that before you can take the third degree. The objective, how do you go about it? You dispel it. These are the important words, and you're working on the path of initiation, trying to bring in the world of ideas from the cosmic ethers, from the Buddhic plane. What is your technique? Contemplation, where you become the soul in meditation. Glamour, you're using the fifth ray, illumination, lucidity, and vision. The fifth ray is very much connected with sight, okay, as is the second ray. how you will go about it is called dissipation. You're not fighting this out necessarily on the path of initiation. You really have to overcome illusions even beyond the third degree, definitely. But glamours pretty well have to end by the third degree, and most of them by the second degree. The battleground is the path of discipleship. And how do you do it? You hold the mind steady in the light and you meditate. So these are progressive, you see, with the methods being elevated as we rise towards the higher problems. Maya, it doesn't say that it is etheric. I kind of want to put that in, even if it's, I don't know if it's part of things or not, but let's just say that it is. And your method, the opposite of that is inspiration. This shows the connection of Sagittarius, which is so often body-oriented, to the clarifying of the chaos of Maya. And you just have to devitalize that, and it gives us a number of ways of doing it. We purify ourselves so we're not led by physical instinct and, well, he says occultism, which can be extended to higher reaches, of course, but force manipulation is the way we get things under control. So we're using the third ray. In a way, we're using first, second, and third ray, or we're using fifth, sixth, and seventh rays to overcome these things. When it comes to the dweller, it takes shape at a late time. The angel of the presence stands on the other side of the portal, on the right-hand side, I presume. You discriminate between the angel and the dweller, and that's on the fourth subplane of the mental plane where this discrimination comes in. And, as a matter of fact, before the fourth initiation, Saturn and Mercury are two important planets, and they are planets of discrimination. So they help you discriminate between the real and the unreal. It's a higher form of discrimination, which is here being, mentioned. The battleground is within your own personality. Will you follow the left-hand path, the right-hand path? Are you the dweller, or do you stand back and become the soul monad as the manipulator and observer of the dweller? How do you do this? It's an advanced technique. You work in the one, at-one-ment, and you end all duality within your consciousness. And, you have to be, I suppose, an initiate to do that. So we can discuss this more. Thank you, Joe, for setting this up. And maybe you can make this available to people. Anyway, it is on page 40, or where is it? A little bit later. Here it is.
It's on page 41.
41, yeah.
And it does, look there, it does flat out say ether there, so it was just...
Okay, just one of those things. Okay.
Right.
Right. Very good. All right, very good. All right, well, that's right now as far as we are going to go. This table is, just memorize it, to dispel, to dissipate, to devitalize, and to have the higher form of discrimination. Remember, discrimination comes in a higher way, not just between soul and personality. It comes in at the fourth initiation. You're discriminating between the dense physical body of the solar and planetary logos and the cosmic ethers. Those are the things you are discriminating between. So the same word can be used on different levels, and maybe you can get a hold of this, or I don't know how to do it, but maybe Joe can make it available to you, or if not, just go to that page 41 in your CD-ROM. All right, so let's see where we are here. Okay. So this is the, I'm sorry for the little delay here. I always forget the words that are necessary. Okay, and maybe you can advise me. This starts on page 38, and I don't know where it ends. It ends on page 41. That's where it ends. Okay. So we'll do it this way, and we'll fill this in. End of doggy number 81. Academic reading number, I suppose, 21. And the date is today, the 3rd of August. and it's on page 41. And then we'll be beginning next week with 82, academic reading number 22. Tell me if I'm wrong. It'll be the 10th of August, and we begin on page 41, maybe a little review of that. But think about those words. It always helps me when I think dispel illusion, dissipate glamour, devitalize Maya, and as far as the dweller goes, learn to discriminate between the real and the unreal in a higher sense. Now, it is the very highest sense on the cosmic physical plane to discriminate between the cosmic ethers and the dense physical body of our planetary logos or solar logos. Okay, now we reach the point. There are a number of us here, and those of you who have joined us, welcome. Let's see, and right. Okay, so here's a couple of things I've said. Yeah, my technical issues, technical in my body too, you know, are being worked out. Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Here it is. Here it is. Thank you for that. Democracy is the worst form of government, except for all the others. Oh, I love it. Democracy is the worst form of government, except for all the others, Churchill. He said it in the House of Commons, 11 of November. I guess he was probably prime minister, but he was quoting an unknown predecessor from Churchill by himself, 574. Many forms of government have been tried and will be tried in this world of sin and woe. No one pretends that democracy is perfect or all wise. Indeed, it has been said that democracy is the worst form of government, except for all those other forms that have been tried from time to time. Found on richardlangworth.com. Okay, Germany, yeah, right. Germany, glamour. Japan, Maya. Italy, illusion. And you know, they all wanted to go back. That's the danger. When you want to make something great again, watch out, because Germany wanted to go back to the age of the divine Teuton, who was pure in race. Italy wanted to recapture Rome. Japan wanted to recapture the era of the samurai. Going back will kill you. So always watch out for those who want to go back. Okay, so Italy was illusion, right? I did. That is where even at third initiation one can follow the left-hand path correct. Most of us overlook this fact. Well, it's very rare, John, I would say. Very rare, but there are occasional black brothers that work on the higher mental plane and maybe in relation in some way to the knowledge petals of the causal body. Most of the following of the left-hand path occurs when you just don't succeed in conquering the world, the flesh, and the devil between the second and third degree. There may be some cases where you fail to discriminate between the dweller and the angel, but by that time, you're pretty well on the Syrian beam, and you pretty well know, so what I would consider to be a great rarity. Let's say there was a rich young man. He was very qualified in so many ways, and he loved the gifts that he had to give. That's one of those things, of course, when you love the gift maybe more than the value of the giving of the gift. Anyway, he didn't sacrifice it at that time, but he certainly didn't take the left-hand path. He went sadly away, pondered, contemplated, and then one day he decided, yes, I will sell all this that I own, give the money to the poor, and follow the Christ. So that kind of decision at his, beyond the third degree, actually, he was beyond the third degree, and the Christ approached him to prepare for the fourth, and he couldn't do it. He didn't have the strength in him to relinquish what he thought were these wonderful things he had accumulated and which could be given to humanity. There's an analogy there. DK said the Christ went through a terrible time when he was in the Garden of Gethsemane, and the Lord of the world offered a different method of world redemption than the Christ, as the head of the hierarchy, already for 500 years had worked out within his consciousness. And he wrestled and he struggled with himself and an angel from Capricorn deeply purposeful sign came and comforted him, and he did make the right decision. He acquiesced to the higher form of will, just like the rich young man eventually acquiesced to the lonely and bereft path of the Christ, where you don't drag all of your possessions through the eye of the needle. Okay, and not as one. Okay, most of us overlook this fact, maybe not as one of the masters ashram, yet all have the abilities. Yes, we all have that, and of course, here's the thing. It takes a long time, usually, to go from the first to the second degree, but if we are on the ball and we achieve the second degree, a high ranking in the Tibetan's terms, then we can pass through the other degrees relatively rapidly in that life or in the next one. Can doesn't necessarily mean will. So yes, we all can do that, but there's a lot of sacrifice along the way. It's the very first law of the soul, and we can talk about sacrifice a lot, but few are the people who really, really make it. Look around you, who do you identify that's really making the sacrifices, that's really giving up the lesser values for the greater, giving up the lesser pleasures for the greater spiritual possibilities? Who are these people? Are they, do you know a lot of them? I don't. I identify here a few, here a few, there a few, but it's tough. And but increasingly necessary in these times. Okay, no one pretends that democracy is perfect or always. Thanks, Alexandra. Yeah, I love repeating it. Has been said that democracy is the worst form of government, except for all those other forms that have been tried from time to time. I just love it. I love reading him. It's just sometimes it's so outrageous and so awakening, you might say. A real first-ray disciple with loads of fourth-ray, and maybe a third-ray monad, I don't know. Later, after the war, he got, what was it? Was it the Pulitzer Prize or some big prize in literature for writing? Was it a 6-volume series on the history of the English-speaking people? Sounds like a big third-rate thing to me up there at the monadic level. And I sometimes question also Blavatsky whether she didn't have the third-ray monad with all of her fantastic ability with history. Churchill also said the best argument against democracy is a 5-minute conversation with the average voter. Oh my God, boy, is that true! And I'm watching the demagogues of recent appearance, and I'm watching the people who are there cheering them on, and I'm watching a certain vacancy in the eyes of the people who are cheering the demagogues on, and it's worrisome, but it is simply a question of how far evolution has taken various people and the particular kind of group that they end up in together. Well, it's a battle and it's decisive, and remember, too much concrete mind or not enough will send you back to Mars at a certain point. Now, hopefully all these people who have not enough or maybe even too much will recover by that time. But there will be quite a 2/3 evacuation on our planet at the time of the Judgment Day, so that everyone on our planet is on the path, otherwise to some internal source for re-education and eventually to Mars, as far as I can see. Thank you for reminding me of these wonderful Churchill quotes. Okay, now, okay. Is there anybody who would like to speak any further here? You're most welcome. I'm looking for you, either out loud or writing something. I've seen the question mark near Alex and John and oh, Keith. Okay, Keith. Here we go. That's Keith. Yep, and you got it. You got it, Keith. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for I just have to laugh. So often when I read Churchill, I just have to laugh. It's kind of cruel, some of the things he says. But then in one of those movies, he says, well, he said of his butler, well, he knows how I am. He knows how I am, so, okay. I'm reminded of some quotes, he could really take a person down. There was a lot of objection to his strenuous attitude against Germany. And people were trying to, make nice with Hitler and all the rest of it. And he would have none of it. And there was this man by the name of Clement Attlee at the time, and I think he was in power and eventually had to make way for Churchill to take over. And Churchill said of Mr. Attlee, very nice man, he says, well, Mr. Attlee is a very, I hope I quote it more or less correctly, a very modest man who has a great deal to be modest about. I can't believe the way he can turn the phrase, It's that fourth-rate, first-rate gift which surprises you, and it just disarms you, I heard a story once that in the middle of the war, he was to give a speech at a university for graduation, something of that nature. And he came out at the podium and he said this: never give up, never give up, never give up. And he walked off the stage. Now, that had to drive the point home more emphatically than any number of interesting words. So sometimes I think that to a great extent it was his oratory and the strength of his oratory that saved England in her darkest hours, and thereby maybe saved all of Western civilization. But what a guy, and he'll be back, of course. And you kind of wait for the great avatars. When I think of the soul of America, I say, "Come on, Lincoln, you're not done yet. Let's get you back here, and let's get Churchill back here, and let's get FDR back here, and let's turn things around so that the lesser minds and the lesser wills and the lesser hearts are not allowed to guide things in a way that is inferior to what you could do." Okay. Right. Okay. Now, I don't know, Tuija, are you there? Would you like to say anything before we go into the meditation? Or sometimes we had such busy times here. I don't know. Are you there?
Yes, I am here. I don't have anything.
And all the dogs and cats too. They are very, they are very ready to speak. I told you we have 2 new cats and 3 chihuahuas, and then there's Tuija, and they seem to want to talk quite a bit. Anyway, thank you for being here, and Olivia and Tuija and I certainly welcome you to each one of these events where we're going to do our esoteric work to try to help out. Okay, so here we go. And save as.
You have some hands, Michael.
Oh, I do? Actual hands? Oh, I have a hand. Hey, Keith. Okay, now you're self-muted, so unmute yourself, and you should be able to speak and unmute the can. Okay, Keith, go ahead.
Here I am. It would be interesting to spend one session, since we're studying glamour, in a theoretical and practical way of reading through the glamour book, of exactly how right now it's manifesting in the world, because since it's so obvious that glamour is run rampant on the world, it would be interesting for us to actually look at examples of, the fake news, and, as you said, the people that cheer and stand behind the strong men that have become so swept up in it. So that's all. I just thought it would be an interesting thing if we actually looked at the reality of life around the world, since it's spreading. I know it mainly from the United States, but Italy and Hungary and everything else.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, we've been maybe what you can say doing a little bit of that as we go along, but you can kind of go ashram by ashram. These glamours of personal power and then the misleading of the people on the second ray, and the manipulating of finance on the third ray, and this will to fight everybody on the fourth ray, and this use of what can I say, technology in a very dangerous manner, as well as denying the real evidences that technology reveals. I was reading about Earth's report card today in terms of its environmental issues, and the report is not good. And of course, there's the obvious stuff with the sixth ray and all of this wild belief that makes you want to kick the earth like a ball, as it says in esoteric psychology 1, just why do you spurn the earth, And when it comes to the seventh ray, well, maybe there's some hope, but there's also a lot of rigidity that we're dealing with there. But that is, I think, one of our hopes, to bring in the seventh ray in the right way quite soon. But yeah, we could do that, of course. And as and those, what can I say? Those things parallel. Yeah, we got a lot of racket going on here. I don't know where it's coming from. I hope it's not coming from me. But anyway, they parallel the 7 forms of glamour that DK gives around page 120. So everything that's going on personally is also going on in the world. Now, somehow I've got a problem here that I'm holding my eyes, and let's see if I can reappear, and if I don't, then I don't. Okay, no, maybe I do. Okay, let's just see. All right, so it's a good idea, Keith. Let's see what we can do about that as we go along. Thank you for your thought. Now let's see, another hand was, what was that other hand?
No,
I missed that other hand.
I think that was all the hands, but you've got some more comments now.
Okay, and where are those comments, BL? Let's see.
The questions down under where you were reading before.
Yeah. All right, let's just see where we are. I'll just go this way, and this way. Clement Attlee. Yeah, Clement Attlee, that was it. Now I can't, my spelling is not my forte, so just look it up. If you say, even if you write in the spelling there in Google, you'll probably get the right one, or you can say Churchill and Clement, put the name in, and it'll come out. But I'm sorry, I don't know the exact spelling. Maybe someone does. You think Lincoln was back in Obama? Well, okay, I still have trouble thinking of Obama as a first ray soul. I think he's more on the sixth and second ray in his soul nature. Lincoln was definitely an Old Testament first ray soul. So from the ray perspective, I don't see that, but they certainly did express some values which are important and very rare at the present time. Love is free. I wonder how the Tibetans group failed. Well, it couldn't really halt it, and it wasn't let's just say that if there had been enough disciples in the world, and not just of the Tibetans, that thought power, especially given the 1936 emphasis on the second ray and goodwill, it might have kept the war from precipitating on the physical plane. But we can't blame only, of course, the Tibetans group. It would have contributed, but it was not certainly the entire responsibility didn't lie there on them. The world has been misled. You say over 100 years. I think it's been misled for a long time, especially as mind developed, yet failing under illusion created a tough miasm. Yeah, well, have to agree with that. Sometimes we can get this pride of mind situation, and we think that because we can think, that somehow we understand reality, but thinking itself can be in the way, the kind of thinking we do, until we really cultivate the egoic lotus and the antikarana, the abstract mind, and eventually what the Tibetan calls the transcendental mind. And that is Mercury in relation to the Buddhic plane, and it has a grip on pure reason. So, okay, and look, we mislead ourselves. It's important for us to think beyond our ordinary thinking and to stand back and reject those things which fragment the world, you know. Obviously, we have to see the relationships, and that comes in. That's why the Tibetan said the fourth ray mind is so important in my work, he said, because it does relate all things in pure reason and harmony eventually. Okay, right. Okay, all right, friends. I think I've got to go on now and do our meditation. And tomorrow, it's in the evening time. Tuija will be leading the Soul of Nations meditation, whatever subject we choose. I don't know yet. And then on Sunday, the attracting money for hierarchical purposes. You know, basically, the Tibetan gave some of these meditations in Discipleship of the New Age Volume 2, and he wanted people to do them. Now, they're very easy to overlook, and we can say, okay, it just referred to his group at the time, but no. He says, these meditations that I've given you are enough to last you for the rest of your life, and some of these other meditations, which are special meditations, are meant to be done instead of the usual daily individual meditation, even when they were doing that kind of thing, individual daily meditations. Substitute the money meditation, substitute the reappearance of the Christ meditation. Every day we do our triangles work. We've got to help the souls of nations emerge, lest the personalities take over and we get an unbearable conflict. So, you know, we're trying to offer this as we go along on this ASK program, you know, ASK and what it stands for. Ask and you shall receive, seek and you shall find, knock and it shall be open to you. Okay, friends. Now, let me just find, yep, here we are. Let's see if I can, just got to find my pitch pipe here. I mean, we can really try any note, but it helps to have the notes that are actually correlated with certain rays and signs and planets and aspects of divinity as HPD has presented them. Okay, so here we go. So there are 35 of us here, 36, 37, 38. I'm not going to name everybody again, of course, but we will at least have some silence as we come together in that silence. And this silence induces that sense of integrity in the group, the integration of the group in the silence. Now we protect ourselves as it is dangerous work, and he advises us to do so. People are much more likely to fall victim to glamour these days than to illusion or Maya. So we'll use that cross of divinity as he discusses it, involving and the two eyes, right? So visualize the light as we make the cross. As a soul, I work in light, and darkness cannot touch me. I take my stand within the light, I work, and from that point, I never move. And the light shines forth in our own individual case, and it shines forth as well for the group as a whole, venturing into this chaotic atmosphere which sweeps so many off their feet. Now there are three lights which are to be brought together. You know what they are. We lift the light of matter up onto the lower mental plane. It is a vital light. We focus the light of thought in the ordinary reasoning sense on the mental plane. We can think, we can vitalize our thought, we can reason, and we also attempt to touch the soul light. We think of light of the soul, and we recognize that light. Remember that Leo, we're very much in the Leo month, is characterized by a certain light called the light of the soul. So we bring down soul light. And merge it with the light of mind and light of matter. A triple light is now one. It's going to be the source of our beam, the beam which discovers and the beam which destroys, weakens and destroys. The Ajna Center is involved here with its fifth ray abilities. And we're going to say this aloud, followed by the sacred word 3 times. The light is one, and in that light shall we see light. This is the light that turns the darkness into day. So our goal, to be rid of the darkness, coming in many forms, and sometimes to touch a higher light, using the lesser light to touch or awaken access to a higher light, eventually the light of the intuition, eventually the light of the spiritual will. We reach the formula, and we say aloud, thinking of a great searchlight that we are creating and turning on in relation to the astral plane and all of its veils, miasmas, clouds, distorting factors. Our beam will go out onto the astral plane. This we imagine the great beam made of the many beams, our beam of dissipating light, and we say, radiance are we and power. We stand forever with our hands stretched out, linking the heavens and the earth, the inner world of meaning and the subtle world of glamour. We reach into the light and bring it down to meet the need. We reach into the silent place and bring from thence the gift of understanding. Thus, with the light we work and turn the darkness into day. And now, to strengthen our being, because the dissipation and destruction we must wield requires the strength of will, we say, contacting the will of the soul, the will nature of the triad to the extent possible, the higher will, really, however we conceive it, with power upon its beam, the light is focused on its goal, on the goal. Power upon its beam. And our goal, of course, is to clarify the astral plane so it is free of those distortions, those desire currents which shut out the light of reality, which lead people in the wrong direction, which delude and bewilder people. We want to destroy, at least weaken, dissipate, and finally destroy those tendencies. Now, think for a moment about this glamour of personality, mistaken identity, really, where we think that we are the personality and that the personality is at the center of everything and very important in the eyes of others. It's opposite of decentralization. Think about all that is being lost in the world of reality and progress because of this glamour of personality. Our objective is to become the soul we are, and even more. But for so many people, they think they are the personality, and the personality is the most important thing that is, and the world revolves around them. And then cooperation dies and group work dies, and understanding the plan and carrying it forward dies, and all kinds of spiritual values never emerge as they should. So let's use our words of power here as we begin our meditation on the glamour of personality. Remember, that's the ultimate dweller. Finally, this glamour of personality introduces us to the what the dweller really is, and humanity's dweller too. And we certainly are fighting it out now with humanity's dweller. So we say, the power of our united light prevents the appearance of the glamour of personality. The power of our united light negates the quality of the glamour from affecting humanity. The power of our united light destroys the life behind the glamour of personality. And now, in our own silence, we will use these words of power, visualizing the light of our beam penetrating into the glamour and producing its weakening and its dissipation. 5 minutes of silence as we see this work of preventing the appearance, of negating the quality and destroying the life. We see this work going on. From an astrological perspective, the dissipation of this glamour requires the movement from an undeveloped Leo expression into a developed Libra expression. It's a very important relationship, and at other times Libra must move to Leo, but in this particular case, Leo, at other times, Leo must move to Libra in this case. Then we will have proportion, cooperation, the end of isolation, and decentralization. So this movement towards the proportionalization of the personality has really to gain ground. We need our personality, but it must be rightly related and in due proportion within the whole and with other personalities. So now we withdraw our beam, this great beam of light we've generated, back into the light, triple light as one on the mental plane, shutting off that beam. The triple light is there of soul, of mind, of the vitality, of matter. And we will continue our work, but to confirm that work has been done, we sound the Om 3 times. And we'll work in a way from the mind to the emotions to the etheric physical nature, the occult manner of descent. And we, of course, must continue to work on our individual glamours as we discover them, or as perchance they may be pointed out to us. So thank you, everybody. And as I say, we'll make up for this morning's problem next week, if we possibly can. We'll make up for it and do the science of triangles work. But it'll be switched around. It'll be in the evening if I'm not colliding with something else. And Joe and BL will let me know. But we'll make up for it. Tomorrow night, Soul of Nations. Sunday night, attracting money for hierarchical purposes. Thank you, everybody, for cooperating together. And lots of love and many blessings from all of us. And from the organizers, Olivia, Tuija, and myself, of this particular approach to the dissipation of glamour. Hopefully it's going on in a number of groups all over the world. We have the method of working, so we just get to work and we work. That's all. Okay, thank you, and Bye for now.